Episode 44. The Wedding Night. When Jade heard his gentle voice, she felt like she'd been hypnotized. Perhaps his voice was too seductive. She found herself following him as if possessed. "All right, then," she said softly. However, once she was in the car, Jade returned to her senses and shook her head. My God, what had she just done? Why did she agree to go home with him? She blamed his voice for being so seductive and gentle. This man must have been a demon in a previous life who had cast a spell on her. "What's the matter with you?" Dario held her fair hand as if nothing had happened and kissed it tenderly. "Mr. Foster, I think I wasn't in my right mind and said something I didn't mean. Can you pretend you didn't hear me?" Jade said with regret. Things had moved too fast. It was inconceivable that she would go to his place. After all, they had only known each other for a few days. "Oh, really? If you're not on your right mind, maybe you need me to treat you? I have a secret cure." He leaned into her body and stared at her soft, pink lips. Poor Lucas. He was going to have to put up with them playing kissy face while he drove. Jade covered her mouth, knowing his intention. She shook her head and said vaguely, "No, I don't need anything. I've said nothing." Whenever he mentioned a punishment or a secret method, it was all kisses. She would not be fooled again. The car arrived at the most luxurious hotel in Washington. Dario led her directly to the VIP elevator as if he'd been here many times and took her to the top floor. When they arrived at the room, Jade realized it was extremely luxurious and even bigger than one of her classrooms. There was a refrigerator, a washing machine, and every other daily necessity in the room. It seemed like a suite instead of a hotel room. She stood in the doorway and asked, Mr. Foster, why are we here? Didn't you say we were going to your house?" "What's the matter? Don't you like it here?" Dario turned and looked at her, his voice full of charm. Jade looked around the room. Her eyes betrayed a trace of happiness and curiosity. She spoke honestly. "I do like it, but it must be expensive. I don't want to waste your money. Let's just find another place to stay for the night. Or we can go to the place where you were staying before," Dario said lightly. "Oh, that house belongs to my sister, and you've already met her son." Tonight was his wedding night. He'd be damned if he'd go back to his sister's house and let that little brat Leopold disturb his time with Jade. Jade stared at him with wide eyes as she said, "What? That's not your house?" "That is correct." Dario nodded. The mansion was indeed in his sister's name, but he had bought it. Occasionally he would stay there. Or rather, he was forced to stay there to look after his nephew. His sister often travelled around the world. Therefore, he acted as her babysitter. Not only that, but her son was his natural enemy. And ever since he saw that child's attitude towards Jade, he knew that child had found his natural enemy too. "Then why don't you buy your own house? It's such a waste of money to stay in a hotel all of the time. It's totally not worth it." Jade never doubted his words. She trusted him fully. A hint of happiness appeared in Dario's dark eyes. She truly wanted to save him money. In all these years, people only wanted to spend their money. There had never been a woman like her who thought of ways to save his money. It seemed like he had found the right woman. "All right, I'll listen to you. I'll buy one if you want to, but I've already booked this room today. Let's just stay here tonight." Actually, he owned this hotel, and he didn't need to spend a single cent to stay there. Moreover, this was his private room. No one had even entered it before. Jade felt a sense of tenderness in her heart when he agreed so easily. She wasn't used to anyone listening to her opinion. No one ever had before. It felt nice to be with a man who was willing to listen to her. It had been so long since she felt the warmth of home. The next second, she lowered her head gloomily and said, "Mr. Foster, I know we're now husband and wife, but you also know I'm poor. So there's not much I can do to help you buy a house, but I'll work harder and make more movies. Once I've gotten my salary, I'll be able to contribute to our household expenses." Jade secretly decided that she would work hard to earn more money so her grandmother could live a better life and ease the burden on Dario's shoulders. Dario was astonished when he heard her say, "contribute to our household expenses." The determination in Jade's eyes simply melted his ice-cold heart. "Why are you so cute?" Dario brushed her hair out of her eyes, then kissed her forehead and pulled her into his arms. He didn't want her to work, but he would not stop her from doing whatever she liked. He was willing to give her whatever she wanted. Suddenly, Dario's seductive voice sounded extremely gentle. "Silly, you don't need to worry about money. I can deal with it myself. All you have to do is the things you like and don't overwork yourself." He didn't know why, but he felt his heart ache when she said that. No one had ever spoken so sweetly to Jade. She blushed, feeling the heat growing in her cheeks. Bruce Stevens used to say similar things, but she'd never felt like she did now. When Dario sweet-talked her, she could clearly feel her heart pounding in her chest, as if the world had gone silent, and all she could hear was her heart. "Yes, even if you want to buy a house, it doesn't have to be huge and luxurious, as long as it's big enough for both of us to live in. It's better to be economical." Ever since she was a child, she knew money was very precious, so she didn't dare to spend it carelessly. The living expenses her aunt had given her were very small. If she spent a cent more, it was likely she would starve. She hated being wasteful. "All right, I'll listen to you, but let's discuss it tomorrow. It's getting late now." Dario hinted it was time to sleep. Jade looked around the room and realized that though the room was spacious, there was only one king-size bed. "But how are we going to sleep?" "Don't forget about the conditions," Jade said with her head lowered as she blushed. Dario didn't answer her. Instead, he led her to the bathroom.